Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Miguel back again with another video, and it's been a while since I reviewed a Xiaomi phone. So let's just do that today. And what I have today in my hands is the Redmi Note 12. The name is a little bit confusing because there's a lot of Note 12s or Redmi 12. Don't confuse this with anything else. This is the Redmi Note 12. And I should also mention that this is the 4G variant which recently came out after the 5G variant. So we already have the 5G variant which came out around, I think, the start of the year. This came out a couple months back. We finally got it in the studio. So this is the 4G variant, which is a little bit cheaper. And I think it makes a lot of sense because 4G is something that's not widely available when it comes to the South Asian market or some parts of the GCC, which is where the market for Xiaomi phones or Redmi phones is the most. So it makes pretty good sense. So let's go ahead and unbox this phone and see what it has, and then finally give you guys in conclusion whether you should buy this phone if you are in the market looking for a lower mid-range phone but at a really budget-friendly cost. So looking at the specs here, we have the Redmi Note 12. This comes with the Onyx gray color. This comes with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. We have different options, so we get a 4 gig variant, a 6 gig variant, and also an 8 gig variant. All come with 128 gigs of internal storage as default. You can't choose that, but you can choose the RAM option. Today we have the one that's in the middle with 6 gigs of RAM. Let's go ahead and unbox this pretty quick and see. Inside we have the phone here, which we'll put to the side, obviously. We also have the booklet here, which comes with the SIM pin, and it also comes with some paperwork. As always, we also get the silicone case inside the box, which is always nice to see. And we also get a 33-watt charger, which again is also a plus here. And we finally get the USB-C cable. Okay, now looking at the phone, this is the Onyx black gray color, which is kind of like a deep black space gray kind of color, and this is a matte finish, so it's not really attractive to fingerprints a lot, which is obviously a good thing. We also have our main cameras here, so we have the triple camera setup here, which I'll discuss in a little bit. On this side we have the SIM ejector pin, and let me actually show you guys because this is one of the a really nice feature that Redmi Xiaomi has included. We get dual SIM support, and we also get the option for an external memory card. So you have a dedicated SD slot and 2 SIMs as well, which you can use here, and the SD slot is expandable up to 1 terabyte, so that's really nice. On this side we have the volume rocker buttons, and we also have the power button, which is also integrated with a fingerprint sensor. On the bottom side we have the speaker, which is not stereo, so I should mention this is not a stereo speaker. The stereo speaker was reserved for the 5G variant. This time we don't get a stereo speaker, but I think that's kind of understandable. We also get the USB-C port, the microphone here, and we also get an IR blaster. And also, after a long time, I've seen this, a 3.5mm audio jack. Even though the box doesn't contain headphones with it, but you still got the 3.5mm audio jack, which is always a plus. All right, let's go ahead and turn on this phone. And now that we have it turned on, we have a few redeemable features, starting with the display. So the display is still 120 Hz, an OLED display, which is probably one of the best features about this phone at this price point. I'm gonna mention the price at the end of the video, and you guys will be shocked to see that at this price point we get 120 Hz display. Normally at this price point we get a 90 Hz display, and sometimes not even that. So this is already hitting above its weight class when it comes to the cost. Apart from that, this also comes with a peak brightness of 1200 nits. That's what actually is advertised. I don't know why, but when we tested it, this gave us around above 700 nits of peak brightness when it comes to auto mode, which is again not bad at all. So it's again hitting flagship levels. The resolution is 1080 full HD resolution, so that's nice to see as well. The only thing that's a drawback here when it comes to the display is that it does not have HDR support. So that's one of the things. The colors are not going to be as good. Nevertheless, I think that's something that's still understandable because we do get 120 Hz display. I should mention here that this is not dynamic, so it's set to 60 or 120, as we can see over here. If you set it at 120 at all times, you can expect some battery being consumed. I should also mention that this comes with IP53 splash water and the dust resistance, so it's not really fully waterproof, but it does come with splash resistance. So if you dunk it and take it out, or if you have sweat on you, you really shouldn't worry about that. Now when it comes to the battery, we do get a 33 watt charger in the box, which means that this does support 33 watts of fast charging. And we tested out the battery, and this gave us around 29 and a half hours of video playback, with over 33 hours, I believe it was, for talk time. That was what the test came out with. When we charged it, this was charging at, in 30 minutes, we saw it go from 0 to 55% in 30 minutes. So that means that to 100, it took about an hour and 10-11 minutes to get there. So pretty good battery, I believe. 5,000 milliamperes is the battery, that the capacity of this battery, which is pretty standard across pretty much all the phones. So it's nice to see that at this price point, we're also getting a pretty decent battery. Okay, so when it comes to the performance, that's where things get a little bit interesting, because this comes with a brand new chip. Yes, a brand new Snapdragon 685 chip. This is very closely related to the 680 chip, the Snapdragon 680 chip, but nevertheless, this is a brand new chip, and this is newer than the chip that came in the 5G version, which was the Snapdragon 4th Gen 1. And this is actually a better chipset because it's clocked at a higher rate. So the clock rate for the 4G variant is actually better. So again, when we did the Antutu benchmark test, we saw that it gave us around 357,000 points, which I know it's not a lot, but it's still pretty good considering that this phone cost only around 600, less than 600 dirhams is what it starts at. So if you go to Carrefour right now or Sheriff DG, you can actually find this for around 580 dirhams. That's what it starts with. That's for the 4G variant. Goes up to 800 dirhams. So the maxed out version only costs you around 800 dirhams. So considering that price point, I really don't have any complaints here. You can play games, but it's not really, I wouldn't recommend it that much. When it comes to the software, this is based on Android 13 and it has MIUI 14, which is the latest right now. And I'm glad to see that we have Android 13 installed from the box, because the 5G variant actually comes with Android 14 pre-installed. So glad to see that we have Android 13, which means that we will get at least 1 or 2 years more of upgrades. If you start with Android 12, you're already way behind. So glad to see that the 4G variant comes with Android 13 pre-installed, which again comes with MIUI 14. Now, when it comes to the cameras, we have a triple camera array setup on the back, and we have a main 50 megapixel camera. We also have an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and we have a 2 megapixel macro camera. The main 50 megapixel camera is actually an upgrade from the 5G variant, because that has a 48 megapixel camera. So this is slightly better. You really cannot tell the difference that much. And the camera quality is I would say is decent. It's not too great, it's not too bad, it's just in the middle. It's really good for everyday point and shoot. But one thing that I did notice is that you have to have ideal lighting. So if you have a lot of lighting, it's going to give you a lot of noise. And if it's at low light, you're going to have a lot of grainy photography or grainy videos. But at the ideal settings for light, this provides you pretty decent photos. Really good for social media, just making videos every day. This will shoot at 1080p at 30 FPS. It does not have the option for 4K video, so that's kind of like a downside, even though it does have a 50 megapixel camera. And at night mode, we also saw that even though it has a dedicated night mode here in the menu, it still didn't provide us that good of a quality. And I should also mention that the night mode is only reserved for the main 50 megapixel camera. So if you want to use the ultra wide 8 megapixel or the macro 2 megapixel, you won't be able to. So that's one of the drawbacks that I saw there. The selfie camera is a 13 megapixel camera, and it's pretty decent, I would say. This also has a portrait mode, but I noticed that when the background was a little complex or there were too many elements in it, then it started to struggle a little bit. So if you have a very simple background, then this will take pretty decent photos in portrait mode as well. Now, finally coming down to the conclusion as to whether you should buy this phone. Well, I think at 580 dirhams starting, it really doesn't hurt anyone to consider this phone. Especially when you get a 120 Hz display, which is an OLED display with full HD resolution. You also get 33 watts of fast charging, so that's pretty decent. And you get a more than decent camera, which can be used for everyday photography. Android 13 is pre-installed in the phone, and going up to 800 dirhams maximum for the 8 gig variant. this is a pretty decent phone. And on top of that, you have the support for dual SIMs, and you have a micro SD card which supports up to a terabyte of external storage. So that's very nice. I believe this is probably one of the best worth it phones that I've reviewed in a long time. And I'm glad that I got this phone in my hands, because this is a worthy opponent when it comes to the lower mid-range phones or a budget option. This is a highly recommended phone from my end. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know down in the comments below if there's anything that you don't like about this phone, or that you wish that you have this phone, or if you have this phone, let me know what your feedback is so far, so that it can also help other people that want to are potentially trying to buy this phone. So yeah guys, that was the Redmi Note 12 4G variant. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.